Welcome to the Dear Son Podcast, episode 7. I appreciate your time. I intend to add value, so I'm not going to prolong the intro. I am excited, which has been my theme. I have another guest, a guest with a very, very compelling story. We'll get into that. Without further ado, please welcome Mikel Brown to the Dear Son Podcast. Mikel, how are you, sir?
What's going on, Derek? I'm good, man. How are you?
Man, I'm blessed, man, and I appreciate you asking. I always want to start with my guests to make sure that they're really doing all right.
Oh yeah, I'm good, man. I've already dropped the kids off this morning.
Oh, boom.
Yeah. It's so I told you I was going to homecoming. So dropping them off is like, man, I dropped them off and I'm not gonna see them till Sunday.
Yeah.
So and as a dad, it's like not making sure they make it home safe today.
Correct.
Correct.
Like,
I mean, their babysitter's gonna pick them up, and I'm cool with that. But it's just, that sense of like, oh, my family's safe. And my wife's going to her homecoming, so really, I'm going to homecoming, but I'm kind of gonna be on a high alert this week. And I already told him, because my nephew's a sheriff where her school is at.
Okay.
I already told him, that she's gonna be up there. Just keep an eye out if I call them. So
yeah,
I'm going to have fun, but I'm really going to be on high alert, man. That's just, I guess that's the dad and husband thing in me.
Yeah, man. Adults need time away too, man. So don't overthink it, man. Enjoy your time. But let's start with your fatherhood story and to orient you. That's just where I get my conversation counterpart an opportunity to just kind of highlight, their childhood story, what your home environment was like, was your father in and out your home, and then all the way to your fatherhood story today, how many kids you have, are you married, that kind of thing. So if you could just start there, and then we'll keep pulling the thread, man.
Okay. So my mother and father were married.
Okay.
My dad was originally from Mississippi. My mother was originally from North Carolina. They met in New York, where I was born and raised. My dad died when I was 8.
Wow.
But my brother's 18 years older than me.
Okay.
So I do have memories of my father because he was an entrepreneur. So I remember, the way my dad had it structured, he had a moving company.
Okay.
And he had a relationship with a furniture store. So whenever the furniture store would need deliveries, my dad would do that. He would move people. So that was the nature of his business. And so, I mean, to this day, I remember vividly, if I were to go to work with him, we'll get up.
Yeah.
My pops called me Chopper. We'll go to the diner. Diners are big in New York. We'll go to the diner. I'll get a chocolate milk with pancakes, and then we'll be on the way. And that's all I remember. Again, he died when I was 8. I remember when when it was time to go shopping or things like that.
Yeah,
he would put the money on the table for my mother.
Right.
We'll go do what we needed to do. So, and I I know we have some time, so I'll talk about how that actually played a part in my life. And so even till when I grew up, so I'm old. I would say probably, now mind you, he died when I was 8. So I probably say maybe at the age of 24, 25, when I was still in New York, I went to the same diner and the lady remembered me from when my pops and I used to go there.
Now, were you going consistently, or you made a visit back after a space of time?
I made a visit, right. I made a visit back after a space of time. And I went in there and I was like, I just happened to go and I was like, y'all remember Charles? Like, they called him Charlie B. I was like, y'all remember Charlie B? It was like, yeah, he passed away a long time ago. I was like, well, I'm his son.
Wow.
It was like, wow. So yeah, that was really cool. So
your father clearly left an imprint throughout his life. People remember him, and we'll get into that. And your brother, did you only have one sibling?
So yeah. So the way that worked was, so my brother in turn stepped in and helped my mom, because it was me and my 2 sisters.
Oh, okay.
So it's my 2 sisters. I'm the youngest, and then I have an older sister that's older than my brother. So basically, they helped my mother around making sure we were good.
Sure.
And so then even too, truthfully looking back at the church aspect, there were certain men in the church that also made sure that they played an intricate role in my development.
Who was responsible for ensuring that you were in church environment? Were your parents on the same page?
My mom.
Your mom?
My mother and father, they wasn't on the same page with that, but it was definitely my mom.
Okay.
And so, Wow, Derek, this interview has me like just thinking back, man. And
Take your
it's
time,
so
man. Take your
no.
time.
It's cool
Yeah.
because everything goes, it's twofold. Like it just shows you how life happens. And so, they just made sure they would come pick me up and we would go out because one of my best friends, we grew up in the same church. His pops was
Gotcha.
there, I knew his brother, and then my uncle on my mother's side, they would come pick me up along with my cousin, and so just making sure I had that male presence.
Yeah.
But my brother was the one that had the biggest presence, and that's where he basically transferred over those skills of that he knew from my father, entrepreneurship, you know,
I,
taking care of the kids.
sure.
Go ahead.
I want to ask a question about your brother because you're already speaking highly of his role in your life.
Mm-hmm.
How did your father's death impact him, and how was it for him to transition into that? That I'm kind of the quasi lead of the family, at least the male lead of the family. How did that play out?
Because I was so young, man, I never really had that conversation with him. It was just what I saw.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just what I saw. So at that point, he left New York, moved to North Carolina because at that time because I have a nephew that's 5 years younger than me. So
Gotcha.
at that point, he had 3 kids. So he moved to North Carolina, opened a convenience store, because his goal was, he had to provide. And so still, thankful to God, we were in a good place to where it wasn't a struggle. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? My mom retired from JP Morgan Chase when she did retire. So it wasn't like we were in a struggling situation. So it was still, a solid environment. It was just making sure that I had those tools I needed, as far as standing up for myself.
Sure.
Making sure that I'm responsible, making sure he made sure I had my first car, like all of those things he made sure that I had. He made sure that like nowadays, kids get allowance just because they feel like they just need money.
Yeah, some
Well,
kids,
with
not mine.
me,
Quick aside, some kids, not mine. Not mine.
I asked my daughter the other day. I said, "What's the purpose of money?" She gonna talk about to spend it. I said, "Oh yeah, you're about to learn this lesson
We got
really
some work to
quick."
do. My kids in the same place.
Exactly.
We got some work
Yeah.
to do. So, your brother was already a father.
Correct.
You had a nephew 5 years younger than you. Were you the oldest responsibility he had at the time, or did he have other children that were older than you?
No. I
You was
was
the oldest.
So all of his kids are younger than me.
Younger than you. Okay.
Yeah, all of his kids are younger than
me. Did it ever seem like it was a burden to him?
Nah, because it went just like this. He included me. Like I was always included. When it was back to school time, I was with them buying sneakers. It was, and the lessons that I was learning, like seriously, Derek, I'm not even gonna lie. I have a lot of shoes, like a lot. But it started with him.
Yeah.
Because and this is what I instill in my girls, well, at least my oldest now, my reward was if you keep one clean, you get another pair.
Yeah. So, man, we got so much in common because
that's
the reason why I buy shoes, and I buy a lot of shoes because they last longer. I'm not wearing one out, wearing one out, wearing one out. I'm sorry, quick aside.
No. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
How old are your girls?
So I have an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Which one is the most like you?
Oh man. So truthfully, they all are. So my 11-year-old, she's funny.
Okay.
She's funny and she says what's on her mind. My 5-year-old, she's very meticulous.
Got it.
I mean, to the T, like to the point where if one of her sisters use the bathroom and they don't flush the toilet, she will not use the bathroom until they come flush the toilet.
Got it.
And then my youngest, she's fearless. And that's how I am. Like, like literally fearless. Nothing, it doesn't matter. Like to the point where her teacher got in her face and she told her teacher to back. Now, mind you, she's 4, so she was in preschool.
Mm-hmm.
Her teacher got in her face. She told her teacher, back up, get out of my face.
Right.
The teacher was still in her face and she slapped her teacher. So I got her because she slapped it. Yeah. I slapped her because I got her because she slapped the teacher, but I didn't get her. I said, I understand you telling her to get out of your face, but you can't do that to her because she's an adult. I said, but I understand. So I wasn't mad at the action. It was more along the lines of like, so then Derek, I asked the question, well, my wife asked, well, why were you in her face?
Ask the teacher that question or ask your child?
Yeah, my wife asked the teacher, why were you in her face?
I like your
And
wife
she
already.
said, because she wasn't listening. And so then when it comes to that, I let her handle that because I don't even, I just don't deal with that from that regard.
Yeah, I deal with it at a slightly escalated level, and my wife has to be the calming one.
Right.
So funny, meticulous, and fearless. From your memories, how much of that can you attribute to your father or his influence?
My father, well, I would definitely say, my father was all three.
Okay.
So again, back in the day, man. So just to give you, so my mom is 79. My mother remember when her and my pops sat on the sofa when Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
Like they remember that. Yeah.
Wow.
Like she would tell me that. And so my father had a sense of humor. My father was a Cadillac man. Like he loved Cadillac.
Okay.
And his personality was he would make people get in the car based on how much you weighed because he didn't want you
with that suspension messing up. Gotta protect them shocks.
Right. So from that point of view, also from the point of view of being fearless, I've never seen it, but my mom has told me stories of. Matter of fact, I remember one story she told me vividly, and I want to because remember this is back in the day. This is when they still saw the color and white sinks and bathrooms and stuff. And I remember, I, I can't remember exactly, but I remember she was telling me they were traveling to Mississippi and it was dark on the dark roads. And my father basically told a white man, like, hey, I got my family or something like that. Like, I'll handle you.
Right.
And he wasn't afraid of him.
Right.
So definitely that. And from meticulous, yeah, I would say my pops was meticulous because I look at pictures and stuff when he wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, to this day, which is so crazy because my brother passed it on to me. I got like my dad's suits. I have his fedora.
Nice.
I still have the original. Like I have the original. If I was thinking, I would have bought it out here to show. I have the original fedora box. It's so like I mean, it's very fragile, extremely fragile. Like when I carry it, that's why I keep it someplace where it won't because the top is torn. So I have his fedora. I actually did a photo shoot years ago with his fedora because my head too big, so it don't really fit how it needs to fit.
I'm in the same club, man. I don't know how to frame it and show my head, but
right, yeah.
I like to try on my hats in private, man. That's me.
Yeah, yeah. So I would definitely say those three traits definitely did come from my pops.
How did the passing of your father impact the relationship you had with your mother?
Being truthful, I sort of blamed her because it was like, because it was like, I don't know exactly my reasoning for blaming.
Yeah.
Because I'm really trying to sit here and think about it. But I can't really be like it was her fault.
Right.
Because again, I don't know the ins and outs. I just know what I saw, like as far as really how she took care. Because like my mom was again, this is my immature mind, not understanding how parents work, right?
Sure.
So it's like typically you'll see somebody trying to make up for what they didn't do. So when I saw my mom always going to the hospital, always making sure my father was good when he came home, my mind says, I wonder if she's trying to do this to make up.
Wow.
Like that. But as time progressed, I know what the responsibility is, right? That's that for sickness and health, right?
Right.
So now I understand. So at that, I'm a kid. You know what I'm saying? I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I'm an 8, 9-year-old kid. I don't know. One thing I see is, trying to make up for what you did.
It's always interesting for me to have these conversations about what our perspective was in our younger years. Clearly as serious of an event as losing a parent or anything that you process at that time. and then revisiting it as a parent when you have children that are in that same stage of life, and just start to understand that. I mean, parents were trying to figure it out too. They were just older than us, right? They didn't have it all worked out. I don't think you mentioned how your father passed, if that's not too invasive.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So my father was big in stature. So, you know, and when I say that, meaning, you know, again, in that era, it was work, take care of your family. Don't worry about your health. Just work, take care of your family. So my dad ended up, he had to have surgery on his neck. And this is my understanding of the story. He had to have surgery on his neck, and so they basically like replaced a bone in his neck. And so at that point, you know, and it happened as a man, a lot of men probably experienced this last year through COVID, when your means of providing you can't do anymore. Now you get into depression. You know, you experience, because I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm saying 8 years, when I was 8 years old, so that was, I'm thinking like 92. So you know what I mean? So having other means of trying to provide, it doesn't exist back then. You know, so I feel, and to my knowledge, it was basically went into depression. And then his desire and will to live was no longer there.
Wow. So that I can identify with that on some level, being, you know, just being in positions throughout my marriage where I wasn't able to provide for my family. And you really feel like it's more than vulnerable. You feel like your existence is questionable. Like, why are you here? You got these people in the situation, these people being your family, and now you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So I can empathize. I can empathize with that for sure. Now, when he passed, you said you carried some sense of, or your one perspective for a period was blame on your mother, was to blame your mother. At any point, did you feel guilt for feeling that way, or for the passing of your father? Did you carry any guilt at any point for any duration?
Oh yeah, man. As I got older, and my mother, and I started to see the sacrifices that my mother was making. That's when I was like, dang, like she was just doing what she was supposed to be doing. That's like, and at this point, I'm like 16, 17. I'm like, she's just doing what she's supposed to be doing, you know, because now she's being a mom, she's being nurturing. So that's what she was just doing. She was just holding down her role.
And she still had a full-time job, right? It sounds like she was a very successful, accomplished.
So, and you know, it's so funny because again, we just had this conversation this weekend when I was at her house, and we always talk about, so like the generations. So my sister talks about, you know, because my sister worked in banking or whatever, and she would talk about how hard it was for her to get off work, her husband get off work, and take care of her two kids, try to make dinner because they ate out a lot. And so my mother always says, well, I did it. And so we always have the conversation of like, well, it's different. It's different now. You know, you know, back then that was like the expectation. Now it's more of like a, hey, we're a team, or putting unrealistic expectations on one partner and putting unrealistic expectations on the other partner. So, you know, it's a little different than it was back then.
Yeah. And you mentioned banking, and I don't think I think we got into the conversation so quickly. I didn't even give you a proper introduction. So you're a training operations specialist with a focus on the banking industry, where you train bankers.
Correct.
Is that fulfilling?
Yeah, man, it really is, because I did not know. So, you know, when you do something, you don't realize how many people don't know about it.
For sure.
You know, and so when I talk to them, and the first question, I just started doing this within the last training. And the reason why I started doing this is because the feedback I was getting about how they felt being on teams. So my first question I asked them, do you all feel like you're bankers? And they said no. And so then I said, why? And they're like, because we're not physically working in the bank. I said, well, let's talk about what you do to help the customer. I said, are those the same things that you do when you actually go inside of a bank? They was like, yeah. I said, well, then that makes you a banker. So it is fulfilling. It's fulfilling because of I have the opportunity to take my experience and explain it to where they understand.
Gotcha. 8 years old is a very young age to lose a parent. What guidance do you wish you had specifically from your father? And I'm not discrediting or dismissing your brother stepping in, but
right.
Man, if I could have just talked to my father about XYZ.
I would say developing structure earlier on.
Tell me more.
So when I say developing structure earlier on, so my father, like, I knew how to hold on to money. Like, I knew that, like that, because that's what I saw. I always saw walk with cash. Like I've always seen that. And when I would say do things like understanding, now this is crazy coming from somebody that works in the banking industry, but understanding, okay, technically you should have 3 types of accounts. One where you pay yourself 10%, which you're entitled to pay yourself 10%. Another one is just, play money or whatever you want to call it. And then the other one to take care of your responsibilities. So I would definitely say that's something that I wish, because that's the unspoken in the community during that age.
Almost to the day.
It's right. How to structure your check. How to structure your check. Like, literally, my wife and I, every single paycheck, every single dollar is accounted for something. We don't just put money, we don't just take it and be like, oh, we just gonna make it rain with the money gun. No.
Because it's
down
there.
To the penny. Everything is structured out. So I would say just helping me in creating that structure, understanding the perseverance through entrepreneurship.
That is it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And there have been times in my life where I called myself an entrepreneur because it was cool. And then when the lessons came, I backed out because I had a job. I think at this stage of life, I understand it differently. And it's very important for me, for my kids to understand that and see it. And just have something to create for your family, for your last name, because you can't give them your job.
Right.
You can't give them your job. What do you think your father's, and it's hard because you didn't have a lot of years where you would know how to assess his entrepreneurship approach. Do you think there's anything that just kind of was innate in you that you were going to be an entrepreneur and you attribute to him? And one other thing, he was an entrepreneur. Your mother was in traditional corporate America, correct?
Right.
Were they on the same page with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother did whatever she wanted with her checks.
Okay. It's a beautiful life.
She did that's what I'm saying. She did whatever she wanted with her. She did whatever. Okay. My father, and my mother said this to the day. She's like, Charles never knew how much money I made.
Because it didn't matter.
And so, and which is crazy because truthfully, it was like this for me. And to be real with you, I think if my father would have been living, I probably wouldn't have went to college, being 100% honest.
I get that.
Because my dad knew entrepreneurship, my brother, entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? So it was innate for me to be an entrepreneur. My mom was more like, it was the thing like, hey, go to school, right? So go to school, get a good job, get married, live happily ever after. That's the painted picture. So I think if he was living, that probably would have. I probably would have just been a full blown entrepreneur, and that's when my grind would have started. Because there was days where I remember this stuff. There was days when my father wasn't coming home because sometimes he would say he was out moving people. So that's what he told me.
Right?
Is that true or not?
Yeah,
I don't know, but
this is not a dad bashing platform. We don't
right
engage in that. Yeah.
Right.
So in terms of it's very interesting that you said that about college, because I want my children to have options, right? And if college makes sense for them, I want to understand where they're trying to go, right? And let's map that out. If college is a part of that, great, but let's make sure we understand that, what the ROI is for the courses of action that we're going to take. And of course they'll do some things, they'll figure it out, they'll bump their heads, but that's my approach. That's not the approach I had growing up. It was the same as you. Go to college, get a good job, work 40 years. For us, it's probably 60 years, really, in that traditional
right.
program. But how do you feel? How does that influence the way that you're raising your children? Is college? What's that conversation like? Do they understand entrepreneurship?
Yeah, yeah. So my daughter, which how she got to that kind of got on my nerve, but I couldn't say anything back. I couldn't get her for it. So my daughter, what she would do is my daughter has she likes to do nails and makeup.
Oh wow. The
So
11-year-old?
Yeah, the 11-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we bought her like the fake mannequin head and stuff like that.
Sure.
So what she was doing was she was making the nails. She'll get the press on nails.
Yeah.
Come home. And I'm gonna be real, she does a really good job. Like seriously.
Yeah.
She'll come home, design them, put them in her little Ziploc bag, and take them to camp. And she was selling them.
Nice.
And so, but she was selling them, but she wasn't really like, she was selling for like $5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she didn't understand you're not really you could get more for that.
Yeah.
So she understands like she's happy about the podcast, and she's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be podcasters.
Yeah.
So she understands the concept of entrepreneurship. She also understands education. So like, she was asking my wife and I about homecoming today.
Okay.
So what's that like? Make sure y'all take pictures. I can't wait till y'all can take us.
Yeah.
So my wife is Greek, so the girls love that, and they talk about the little being Greek and stuff. So they're understanding and they're seeing both parts of it. And the conversation is, mommy and daddy are doing this so that we can create a legacy for y'all.
Absolutely.
And expressing to her, I'm like, Alex, once we put this on YouTube, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know. That means like I can see that when I'm like a grown person. So that's the theory behind how I teach them and what we believe in the house.
I think that's awesome, man. I think it's our duty not to stifle their creativity, their imagination, facilitate it to the point that it makes sense and it's not, doesn't harm them in any way. Something just hit me about the dynamic between you and your brother.
Okay.
Did you really have a brother relationship? Because he had to step in so early.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you process that now? You both is he still alive?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's still alive. And it's still challenging, man, because it's like the silent. It's like silent.
Yeah.
Like the unspoken.
It sounds weird.
It is weird. Yeah. And so this is why it's weird, because it's like, so it's like one of those who should call who situations.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, in my mind, it's like, you should call me, you the older brother. And probably in his mind, it should be like, you should call me because I've sort of been like your dad. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's done so much for you. You kind of
right. Yeah. So it's like, right. So but our relationship is solid. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like it's not weird or anything like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely understanding, like the lines are so fine. So it's like, I get asked this question a lot, and it's like, if you could have one last conversation with your dad, what would it be? And I really wouldn't want to have a conversation. It would just be like, so when your kids, when they little, they'd be like, Dad, look what I did.
Yeah.
That's what it would be for me. It would be more like I could take my life, right, and be like, Dad, look what I did, and just hear, I'm proud of you, son.
I'm proud
of you. That's it. If I could have one last conversation, that's what it would be. And so that stems over to my brother. It's like and I'm not saying this in a negative way. It's more like I'm a prove to you that I don't need you.
I get that.
You get what I'm saying?
I get that. Yeah.
Because if he looks at me as one of his children and I need him, it's gonna always be a need to
Right.
tell me what path I need to take for my life.
At what age did that become your reality? Where it's like was it at the stage where you were becoming a man? Was it when you had children? Like, where did that revelation come to you that I need to demonstrate I don't need to be needy?
So that happened when I really did my first real business venture. So at this point, I was married. My daughter probably was one at the time, and so this is when I got into my first business venture ever was socks.
Okay.
So I had a brand called Knits. I had I literally designed it. My first thing was when I first started understanding international makeup quantity and stuff like that. I had 5 styles, but 500 pair of 5 styles.
Oh wow.
Right, first business ever. And so, when I got my samples, I'm telling my brother, I'm like, look, I'm showing them.
Yeah.
And so my brothers always did big business deal. Like it wasn't, oh, sell $15 pair of socks. It was more like, oh, I'm gonna sell this car. So much to the point where he because my brother has a car lot.
Okay.
So what he'll do is, of course, you have the car sitting on the lot, but more so, part of the game is he'll buy with low miles one place and then take them someplace else and sell them in bulk.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because they'll have city miles on them.
Gotcha.
Versus try to put them all out there, and like that's one part of the game.
Yeah.
And so I remember he used to be like, "Man, I'm telling you, you got to get in, you got to get into these cars, you got to get into these cars." And I'm like, that's not my thing. And so he said to me, he was like, "You don't do something because it's not your thing. You do what you got to do to take care of your family."
Gotcha.
But that didn't resonate because guess what? I went to school, had a good job.
Yeah.
I was taking care of my family. This was just something to be like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it transpired like over the years. And one thing that he said to me that has me with that I'm gonna show you that I don't need you was he said, don't just be an educated employee.
That's
And
golden.
so yeah. So when he said don't be an educated employee, to me that's like, oh, okay, well, let me show you what I can do with my education
Gotcha.
and these two things right here and
Yeah.
this thing right here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what his intent or what the application. Well, you explain the application, but just applying that to my life right now, I tell that to my employees. Like I want you to be valuable in the industry. Don't just be valuable to this company. I want you to have value and worth. Did you, through those conversations, did you ever feel like compete might be an aggressive term, but did you ever feel like your projects were smaller because they weren't stacking up to the level of what he was doing, or at least initially? Like you said, you had socks, he had cars, your father had a whole moving company. Did you ever feel like you had to measure up to what they demonstrated and what they accomplished?
Nah, and the reason why I said it is because so conversations with my mother, she understood my level of intellect because I would always talk to her and we would talk about things on the news and we would talk about what's going on. And that was first part of where my structure came was initially, well, by the time I finished undergrad, I was a business major. So that's when my mother was like, hey, watch the news if you want to know how to dress and how to talk and how to, not don't use filler words. Like those are the things that's how I was structured. Um, that's how it was. And so I didn't feel like I had a need to compete because I always feel that each generation what is that? Each one teach one.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And what is that? And I don't like to quote the scriptures if I don't know it exactly, but basically it talks about there's a need for the old and the young because so much one is strong and one knows the way.
Right.
And so
wisdom versus
what happened?
experience.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right, exactly. So I knew that there would be a time that my knowledge would come together with his experience. And so that's what happened when it came time to him purchasing a piece of commercial property where a hot dog stand was going to be.
Gotcha.
And so that's when it was like, okay, excuse me. He's like, so how should I structure it?
He needed you.
Right. Like, so how should I structure it? What are the things I should do here? What color is this? Can you do the logo? Can you do this? Check this. I need this. Check. So it became, like, wow, my brother's really knowledgeable.
Yeah. Did he respect you differently at that point, or was it just an
Oh
aha
yeah.
moment?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. It was, yeah. Like, yeah, it's a huge difference now. But so now remember now, and this is what I'm gonna say again, showing like father figures and stuff. So remember, I was like my best friend's dad that was in the church. He was a deacon.
Okay.
And so fast forward, so my best friend, his brother that's older than him has now moved to Charlotte. And so people don't know unless they have conversations with you. So he came to my house, we had a conversation. He was like, yo, I need you to take a look at my portfolio to make sure my advisor is doing the right thing for me. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
no longer looked at as my little brother or my little brother's best friend.
Yeah.
It's like Mikel has acquired this knowledge and these skills over the years where it can be helpful and beneficial.
What does your brother mean to you?
Man, a lot. My brother means a lot. He he showed me how to be a dad, man. He did. He
Yeah.
showed me how to be a dad. Because my brother got, I want to say, I think it's either 5 or 6 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And although they're all not by the same person or the same woman,
Mm-hmm.
they all know each other. I'm talking about to the point where like they'll fight for one another. I just saw two of my nephews. I just saw two of my nephews the other day, and it's so crazy because he means so much to me that his kids mean that to me too.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I even got back home from Raleigh. I got back from home from Raleigh late because I was there talking to two of his kids for like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance for me, Derek, of having these conversations with my nephews, especially my nephews, is again, we only know what our mind is exposed to.
Absolutely.
And so it's my responsibility to expose them to more,
Sure.
even when it comes to opportunities of making money.
Yeah.
So if you only know, you know, selling cars is the way that's going to make you money.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about this. I was talking to my nephew about his house because he was like, he wanted to move and he was just thinking of some other things of how to generate some additional income.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, nephew, your house is on the lake. Like
Yeah.
that's a
Desirable.
great Airbnb opportunity.
For sure.
He was like, I never even thought about that. So you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I give them the information. What they do with it, that's completely up to them.
Application is on them.
Yeah, but he definitely, man, he definitely means a lot. Like looking at, yo, Derek, the last the last job I remember my brother having was back in the day. Now, mind you, my pops died when I was 8. So I still
Yeah.
again remember my brother was in Manhattan handing out flyers for Nathan's. Like
Hot dog.
letting them know about letting them know about hot dog specials.
Yeah.
That's
That was
the
the last
last
job he had.
that's the last job I remember my brother having. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just that is definitely life goals for me. I've had a job way too long. I'm thankful for it,
Yeah.
but wow. So is your brother proud of you? Have you had that
Oh
conversation?
yeah, he just told me. It's funny you said that. He just told me that the other day. He just told me that the other day. He was like, because we were talking about a car. Because I'm getting ready to, not yet, but I think in January I want to buy a car.
Okay.
I had a car, but working from home I don't need it, so I sold it.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about buying a car. And so we were having a conversation for the car. I was like, I'm looking online, getting prices. I was like, what am I doing? So I called my brother. I was like, hey, this is what I want to do as far as a car choice. He was like, because my brother calls me Duke. He was like, yo, Duke, they running high right now.
So we got Chopper and Duke.
Yeah, Chopper and Duke. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he was like, they running high right now. I said, all right, well, just let me know how much it costs. I'm gonna go to my bank and get the paperwork and stuff done. And he was like, okay. So then he started telling me about real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's like, I know you got your own thing going on, but remember, I think, I don't know if I told you or I told someone else that people get the same level of gratification when talking about themselves as they do when it comes to eating and making money.
Yep.
So, him telling me about the real estate opportunities because I mean, that's a big deal for somebody to sell, your first piece of commercial real estate.
Yeah.
Especially like, matter of fact, yeah, he sold it last year during the pandemic.
How long did he
So,
hold it?
oh wow, we had that property. I want that. How long did we have it? I want to say we had that property for like 10 years.
Oh yeah, so it's some upside.
Right. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah. He walked away to the bank.
Okay.
That's what he did. He walked from the closing to the bank.
Okay.
That's how that went. Yeah.
Okay.
Um. So yeah, and I played a huge part in that as well.
Okay.
And so him seeing my ability to operate business from the side of education versus experience,
Yeah.
that's like, okay, he values that. Because I had a conversation with one of my homegirls. She has a PhD, and she was saying now that, which is still not really spoken of, but now people are starting to view experience as, it's called non-traditional education.
Yeah.
So, right, based on the amount of years you've been
Yeah.
doing a thing, it's like, okay, you technically can go to a school and it will give you a degree in that particular subject
Yeah.
because it's just non-traditional. It's just a non-traditional education.
Yeah.
So yeah, he definitely tells me, and again, he's like, he always says, I know you got your own thing going on. Well, I just want to show you how to have multiple streams of income. So that's his biggest thing. Yeah, he definitely tells me that. That's one thing I know for sure, that he's definitely proud.
So, Mikel, this has been a very enlightening conversation for me. I admittedly, I've never lost a parent, so I can't empathize with what that is like. The way your life has panned out, it seems like your village stepped in to make sure that you weren't lacking anything. Your brother played a huge part, and I think the most impressive thing for me is that you recognize all of that and you're grateful. And
Yeah.
and I wanna understand as we start to wrap up, how has how have these events impacted the way that you parent? Like, are certain things, I would imagine that certain things are more important, or you see things as more important than maybe somebody that hasn't lost a parent. So you're more aware of time and pouring into your children. And I don't want to put that answer on you, but do you think you have a different, probably a more informed perspective on the importance of parenthood, having lost a parent early in your life?
Oh yeah, being present.
Mm,
Being present is major.
yeah.
And this is we talking about dads here. But you already know, Derek. My wife and I, we were separated last year. So me having my kids every other week, that was the hardest thing for me to do, but also the most important thing for me to do,
Yeah.
because I had to remain present. Like, that being present and understanding that your journey as a dad is your own journey. Because
Situational.
if you don't um educate yourself on different ways to do different things,
Hmm.
what's going to happen is, goes back to that, only knowing what you know. And so
Sure.
then you're going to try to raise your kids based off what you know versus, hey, let's expound on what we know
Yeah.
and expand our brain.
Seek more.
And right, that's what I was just about to say, seek more, absorb more. And the more you do that, the more opportunity, so those are the things that I challenge myself with: making sure I'm present, making sure I'm forever learning,
Yeah.
making sure I'm always asking. My wife and I ask, is there anything you need in the moment? But making sure that,
That's good.
asking my girls, um, is there anything you need from daddy? Like, that's like, so today. So I had to get a rental car to go to the homecoming. And so when I picked it up last night, my oldest daughter, she don't know no car seat. She just jump in the car. She's like, I'm going with daddy. So she jumps in the car.
Yeah.
Well, the other two, they're in booster seats. So they're screaming and hollering in the car with my wife. I want to ride with daddy. But it was already late. So we wanted to get him home.
Yeah.
So my wife was like, she's like, hey, can you make sure you take them in the car? And I already knew in my mind, like I had to do that for them because I don't ever want my kids to feel like I'm treating any one of them different than the other. So they get in the car today, they're like, oh, wow, thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, I like this car. So I had to make sure that I did that. So staying present, making sure that I'm teaching them and I'm always learning.
Man, as enjoyable as this conversation has been, the aha moment for me was just now. Is there anything you need in the moment? Asking your children that.
Yeah.
Asking your spouse that for sure. But that, like, it just hit me that I have a habit of allowing, like, I'll collect mental notes about things that are happening with a child, and I'll get to it at some point, right?
Right.
That's a terrible approach because do they need anything in the moment? I don't think I've ever
I'm
asked
working on it. I'm
I'm talking about me. Yeah. You're helping.
Okay.
You're helping me. You're helping me right now. I'm sure you're helping somebody else, but I've never thought to be that considerate of my children. And it's not like, do you need a thing? Do you need? That's really powerful, man. And I hope it resonates with the audience like it's hitting me. And if not, thank you for hitting me like a ton of bricks. But
right,
there's such an expectation that we have mentally of what our kids are supposed to be and what they're supposed to need or not need. And my problem has been not communicating those expectations. So the gap is just bigger, right? I'm expecting this this behavior out of you, but I haven't told you that I'm expecting this. Compound that with me not even asking on a regular basis, do you need something right now? Not do you need me to buy something? Is there something that you need? Is there a gap in your life right now?
Right.
That I need? Thank you.
You're welcome, man. And again, so it's easy for me to ask that when I'm not distracted. So, like, prime example, I work till 7. So if I'm upstairs and I'm in a Zoom, they already know, like, everyone knows what time my kids come. Because I think when we talked first time, you saw my daughter came up. So they already know.
Yeah.
Right. So they already know. But I got to realize, so it's kind of like, baby, daddy's working, like, give me a second. And then you could tell me about your day. And I want to see the lip glosses that you got, stuff like that. And it's trying to balance that, being occupied.
Yeah.
And like, but my wife really helps with that. Like, my wife would be like, babe, they talking to me. I'd be like, I'm sorry. What you need, baby?
Big struggle for me. Like my wife would say the same thing. Like, did you see him standing there for 3 minutes? No. No, I was on a call,
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, man. It's developing. And I mean, again, if you would have had this conversation with me 2019, not even 2019. Well, yeah, 2019 before the pandemic, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't even said, "Is there anything I could do for you in the moment?" That wouldn't even been in my vocabulary, man.
I wasn't mature enough to have these conversations last year, let alone 2 or 3 years ago. And I was always about to go on another trip for work. And I realized my wife and I had a conversation about it on our other podcast. I realized that I was telling myself that my marriage was good because I was able to get away and tolerate things that were bothering me and not talk about it. So if I had a problem, I'm the type that I can suppress it long enough to where I can put it in a box to say, okay, I'll just manage this internally. But I was going so much every 2 or 3 weeks, I could get away from addressing the actual problem. I come back less irritated about it and think that the problem was resolved.
Wow.
But it wasn't, man. So so pandemic, the collateral damage for from the pandemic for me has been a blessing. I've experienced COVID, so I'm not trying to be dismissive. I've experienced family loss through COVID. What I'm taking from it through my experience that God has afforded me is I needed to pause. I needed to be more real with myself. I needed to get to know my family And the crazy thing is, not crazy, but the good thing is I like my family. But I didn't get that. I didn't get that until the pandemic. Like you always said, love my kids and you want to celebrate your kids. And sometimes it becomes a thing, right? Where adults are competing. My kid my kid is great. I like my family. I can't even tell you how to get to my office right now. Like if I had to go to the office quickly right now, I have to put in GPS because I haven't been in 18 months, but it's a beautiful thing, man. And I've definitely, I mean, that last piece, man, I'm still, do you need anything from me? That's big, man. So the way I want to close out, the way I've consistently been closing out conversations when I have a guest or a conversation counterpart, because we family now,
right,
is what I call it's a segment I call Father to Father, right? Is where I'm seeking advice from my conversation counterpart about what advice would you offer me about fatherhood, and it could be anything along that spectrum. But given your experience, your education, your knowledge, your wisdom, I'm asking you to impart some of that on me in the Father to Father closing segment. What would you tell me? What's your advice to me as a father?
So, what's the because I know you got 5 kids. So you have a mixture of boys and girls, right?
Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. So I have 3 girls, 2 boys. That's not the hard part, but they are 18, 15, 14, 8, and 6 right now.
Okay. So this is what I have all girls.
Yeah.
And what made me come to this conclusion was, so people try to joke like, oh, you got all girls?
Girl dad.
Yes, I do have all girls, but I have so many nephews. So I'm okay with being a girl dad.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of high value men that's going around. And so I would say, because I had this, because I had to have this conversation on my Facebook page because somebody said, oh, I don't know how you deal with having all girls. And so it hit me when I said this to them. I said, it's easy because I'm doing 2 things: showing them what a quote unquote high value man looks like. And their mom is teaching them how to be a quote unquote high value woman.
Sure.
And so, father to father, I would say, in showing your boys and showing your daughter, more so teaching your boys and showing your daughters, that's what I would give you. Because if we instill in them the value now, when they get to the age of wanting to say, will you marry me, or say I do,
that's scary.
Right, it is, but they'll understand their value.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Perfect sense.
They'll highly understand their value of, oh wait, you think you're just gonna date me? All right, bye-bye. Because guess what? Daddy's gonna take care of me until the right man comes along.
Yeah.
And I tell my daughters all the time, they're like, Daddy, when can I date? I say, you can date when whoever's you're dating can show me financially that they can take care of all of your bills and mommy and daddy's bills. And I need to see that the money is made legally.
I like that extra layer of mom and daddy's bills. I like that.
Yeah. So that's what I would definitely say, father to father.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm glad we were able to link up, and I hope this is not our last conversation. I know.
Oh nah, man.
I have other
told
platforms.
You we coming to Texas.
Oh, and we gonna make it happen. If you get any within 4 hours of the city that I'm in, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out.
Absolutely.
But I know that you have a couple of platforms. So if you want to give that information out, this is about helping and building others.
Right.
Sharing platforms. So tell the folks what else you have going on.
So we have, my wife and I have a Before You Go There podcast. And so basically the gist, our podcast has 2 components. The first component is we talk about our journey of being separated.
Okay.
And the punch to that is we both started cheating on each other at the same exact time in the same exact year and month.
Well,
that's that. And
If that's not worth a listen, I don't know,
right.
What is.
And just to give you a gist of it, so we compare marriage to melted chocolate. So basically saying, if you don't nurture, so you never heard us talk about that, Derek, the melted chocolate piece?
Dog, I saw if it's on the episode that's up there. I told you I saw it, but I gotta get through my work week before we.
Okay. Oh yeah. So yeah, we didn't put it. So basically, if you think about a chocolate bar, and I just say Hershey because I know that's the one you can see the word Hershey on top of.
Yeah.
And you take that piece of chocolate, which is the equivalent of when you first got married. It's perfect, looks good.
Yeah.
Take that chocolate and you sit it outside in the sun. It's gonna melt, right? So that's the equivalent to your first disagreement, your first level of miscommunication in your marriage, and you take that chocolate and you put it back in the refrigerator, right? So you brush the conversation under the rug. When you look at that, or you put the chocolate in the freezer, when you look at that chocolate, it doesn't have the same look and mold
form
that it when you first put it in there. So now, again, you do the same process, take it out, put it back. Take it out, put it back. Eventually, the chocolate evaporates and fades away. And that's what happened to our marriage. We was making everything like it was okay, and it evaporated.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Link in the description below. I'm gonna definitely listen to that this weekend. I saw that title. I was like, oof, I gotta be.
Oh yeah. Why did I cheat?
I was like, I gotta be in a good headspace to listen to that.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope, man. And your IG is the handle that you see on the screen right there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, man, I appreciate you. To the listeners, if you made it this far into the podcast, you owe it to yourself to like and subscribe. It's only right that you do that. If you invested this much time, you should be a member of this family and this community because we're trying to learn and grow. If you're listening on the audio experience, please follow on the platform of choice. I have enjoyed this conversation. I know you have as well. Get active in the comments. And I appreciate you guys. God bless you. Peace. The Dear Son podcast is produced by D. John's Live Studios. All rights reserved.